Politics is really a misnomer. It shouldn't be called politics. It's not about the government. It's not about the right and the left, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Libertarians, the Independents. It's not about the Green Party. It's not about all of these ideologies. Politics is about control, social control. And it tends to have whichever ideology you believe in, it tends to conform the government if that ideology gains power. So the Republicans are guilty of this, as well as the Democrats, Obama and Clinton, and going down the line. So the Republicans hate the Democrats, and the Democrats hate the Republicans. Clearly designed to just get the people fighting. Both sides think that they have the right answer to the world's problem, but socialism never works. Socialism leads to communism, authoritarianism. It's historic, but nobody wants to look back and look at that. They say, no, we can make it different. We will be different than all of the rest of humanity that has ever lived. They've brainwashed you through the media to think that you can do anything, you can be anything, you can be a god, you can overcome any obstacle if you just try hard enough. The New World Order will come, and we can make it happen. They're making it happen all right, and you're complicit in your own demise if you're going from that philosophy. If you study carefully and just forget about what they're saying, and you study carefully about what they do exactly the same thing, although there's an opposing ideology at work. So that's why all the Republicans hate Obama. And that's why all the Obama people think the Republicans are greedy, crazy, radicals, and all of this other stuff. And the Republican Party is guilty of many, many sins as well. They take special interest money above the needs of the people and the best interests of the people of the United States. That's what has to change. That's why I'm doing this.
I'll make our government open and transparent so that anyone can ensure that our business is the people's business. And as president, I'm going to make it impossible for congressmen or lobbyists to slip pork barrel projects or corporate welfare into laws when no one's looking. They will not work in my White House. It's when lobbyists set the agenda, and that's why they won't drown out your voices anymore when I am president of the United States of America. Because when I'm president, meetings where laws are written will be more open to the public, no more secrecy. That's a commitment I make to you as president. When there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it.
And the lying continues to this day. That is the truth. The special interests, which are owned and controlled by major corporations, mega conglomerates, that when you break down the corporate structure, comes down to 147 companies that own all the others. That's right. In interests. Their special interests are literally for these 147 companies. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, many of them. Found the Federal Reserve, the banks, mostly are banks, and drug companies, major corporate, and they're all interlinked. So understand that if you wanted to make the world a certain way, and you got yourself aligned with people of similar means and ideologies, you would form a company. Isn't that true? Wouldn't it be if you wanted to make widgets? You might need partners to get together to make enough widgets so that you can control and monopolize the widget market. Weren't the Rockefellers and others, the robber barons at the turn of the century, weren't they all sued? Wasn't that all that big fraud about we're going to break up the monopolies? Do you really believe that happened? It didn't. The crafty Rockefellers, and going back to the Peabody Trust, the very first foundation, Peabody Foundation, in the 1840s sometimes, they utilized the same philosophy, and they insulated themselves from not only from taxes, but they got the world to believe through propaganda and other means of control, putting people in their way of thinking in these organizations that they gave money to, like, we will start your hospital for you and give you all this money for funding and equipment. Since we did this nice thing for you, you wouldn't mind if we had 2 or 3 people sit on your board. And that's how they've done it over the last year, and they do this in all the industries, especially with the medical schools and the big pharma cartel. That's how it was put together. The allopathic medicine and pharmaceutical medicine. And once we come to the understanding that these people are here to control us and control industry, they're really the party. It's a one-party system. That's the party. When you talk about it in a sense of communism, it certainly is exactly like that. Authoritarian socialism is what they want. It allows them to control industry, to be controlled by monopolies, controlling industry, and a love relationship with the state, industry and the state, corporatism, whatever you want to call it. Collectivism is really what it is. And through treaties and through regulations and through licensing, they have achieved a substantial dent in what used to be America. So you can't just have a great idea in this country anymore and go out and get through all the red tape to bureaucracy. It's very difficult. That's why most businesses fail. This isn't just an accident. They're just saying, well, you see, it's so difficult to do this. That's why it fails. No, they make it as hard as it could possibly be. So only those that can go through the hoops and those that have the resources to really start something would even get the opportunity to do so. It's totally been manipulated this way, but nobody pays attention to it. Nobody realizes it. Nobody's thinking that way. Why would you think that anybody would be so insidious? Well, that's when you start realizing that all these companies start merging together. And, like now all of a sudden, you're going to have these the mega banks all merged. The oil companies merge, and they get permission to do this. They get permission. And then, they're not going to control pricing. Oh, no, they're not going to do that. They're not going to plan their renovation times, and then there's a storm coming so they could pump up the price of gas because they know that it's storm season or even worse. I mean, it goes so deep, the rabbit hole. I don't want to scare anybody away, ladies and gentlemen. But these are the things happening today. And what about Snowden? This whole thing with Snowden. I mean, it's unbelievable. The U.S. charges Snowden with espionage. It's unreal. Federal prosecutors have filed a criminal complaint against Edward Snowden, the former National Security Agency contractor, who leaked a trove of documents about top-secret surveillance programs. Well, listen, let me tell you something. The CIA, historically, I can go through many, many cases, and many, many things that were horrible. MK Ultra turned out to be. This is all top-secret stuff. MK Ultra, MK Naomi. My goodness gracious, there's just so many evil things that came out many years later. It always comes out later. The truth always comes out eventually, and they try to suppress it long enough that these people are dead, and then they just say, oh, that's who they were. No. They're all working in concert to annihilate national sovereignty. This is the goal now, and to end all war by using war. Now, you can even look this up. In fact, they crushed the 1952, or was it 54? It was in 1954, there was the Senate Committee on the Foundations, and Norman Dodd tried to expose the truth. He was given the task of uncovering it, and there was certainly many factors that would have come out that would have horrified America. Certainly at that time, it was odd to believe that the concept was to have the United States merge with the Soviet Union, which interestingly enough, now, some 60 years later, isn't that almost true? I mean, isn't Putin and Obama, aren't they getting lovey-dovey, and even though they look like they have opposing forces? This is how it works. It's Hegelian dialectic. So by trade agreements and removing national borders, sure, they could merge us with the Soviet Union. Sure, they can socialize us in everything with health care and give you everything you want and take away the property rights as they do it slowly, using economic collapses since they have control of the banking system. And these are the things that Snowden and other information that comes out. And that's why people are exposing this truth, because it is available and it can be discovered, and if you look hard enough, anyone can find it. And then people take the chance of doing this and exposing it and realizing there is no freedom unless you are really free. Unless you can say what you want, expose evil. When evil goes after good and the people do nothing, you're not only under tyranny, you're mind controlled, you're brainwashed. You'll take their side. And if you're fearful, you're saying, you're just a fearful person, you'll go along with it because you're afraid something will happen to you. If you don't have something to stand for, principles, to live and die for at any moment, you're not alive. Your world is not real. You're living from the way that they've programmed you to believe and think. They don't want you to think too much. They don't want you to realize how much. It's like George Carlin said. He made it in jokes about it, but it's very true. You want to know how much you're being fucked by a country that literally threw you over, like he said, 30 years ago at that time. It was more than that even then. The United Nations will destroy our nation. It's doing it. We already have given up sovereignty to the United Nations. There's already now, with trade agreements with Mexico and Canada that are put in place, basically, essentially, why do you think there's no borders? They don't care about the borders because they want everyone to be integrated. They want this one world, and then they can control it. They will give you what you need, but the price will be your liberty and your freedom and mandates. And some of those mandates might be like vaccinations and things of that nature. And guess what? Then you'll get cancers and all these other things that they'll cover the treatment for, and you'll die. And if this sounds outrageous, I can't tell you that how important it is for you to understand that you're not thinking about things with an open mind, and you're thinking of things with a belief system that is falsified and that is completely manipulated to get you to resist the truth. Because this is the truth. It happened in Guatemala, doing tests. It came out. They sterilized people in this country until 1980. Look it up. Sterilized them. Forced sterilization. Read The Club of Rome. Read Limits to Growth. Read Ecoscience. Those books. If you're skeptical and I'm making you angry, there's a reason for that. This is another good thing. If the things I've told you are disturbing to you, that the government has done research on human people, and then you discover it to be true, what it really means is, if it bothers you, I understand. That's because, and if it makes you angry, that's because it should. Our founding fathers gave us a republic, but only if we can keep it.